Listen, sweetie, this is Premier Banking. Are you sure you're in the right place? The venom in those words stops every conversation dead. First National Bank's marble lobby holds its breath. A black woman in an immaculate suit stands at the counter, her hand trembling slightly as she places her ID down again. Behind bulletproof glass, branch manager Derek Collins leans back in his chair, that smug smile spreading wider. 12 customers watch in horror. Phones rise like silent witnesses. A mother covers her daughter's ears. This is Dr. Amara Williams. She controls $2,300,000,000, 0 cents in assets. In exactly 7 minutes, she will utter 6 words that will obliterate this man's world, trigger a corporate earthquake, and prove that hell hath no fury like a CEO underestimated. Collins doesn't shout. He doesn't need to. His weapon is politeness sharpened to a razor's edge. Of course, I completely understand. His smile never wavers. It's just that Premier Banking has very specific clientele requirements. I'm sure you understand. The word clientele lands like a coded slur. Amara's chest tightens. Her grandmother cleaned these same marble floors 60 years ago. Her mother worked 2 jobs to put her through Harvard Business School. She's earned her place here with blood, sweat, and a 4G. What requirements specifically? Amara asks, her voice steady as granite. Well, our premier accounts require proof of substantial ongoing income, corporate leadership positions, significant investment portfolios, that sort of thing. His eyes rake over her dismissively. What line of work are you in exactly? The question drips with assumption. Behind her, a businessman's breath catches. A mother's grip tightens on her daughter's hand. Phones emerge from purses like digital weapons, recording every syllable of institutional poison. Teller Janet Morrison leans forward, 23 years of practice discrimination flowing through her veins. I'm sorry, but our system is running unusually slow today. Account verification is taking much longer than normal. It's a beautiful lie. The businessman who just left? 47 seconds. The elderly woman before him? 1 minute flat. But for Amara? The system has suddenly developed digital arthritis. Morrison's fingers dance across her keyboard in elaborate theater, each keystroke a small act of cruelty disguised as procedure. Amara watches the performance with the detached interest of a scientist observing lab rats. As Morrison performs her digital ballet, Amara places her phone face down on the marble counter. Black leather case. Platinum emblem catching the afternoon light for exactly 2 seconds. Williams Capital Group. Collins doesn't notice. He's too intoxicated by his own perceived power to see the sword hanging over his head. You know what might work better? Collins' voice takes on that special tone reserved for speaking to children and the intellectually inferior. We have a community branch on Martin Luther King Boulevard. They're really wonderful with people like you. People like you. The phrase detonates in the marble silence like a grenade. A woman behind Amara whispers, "Oh my God." A teenager pulls out his phone, fingers flying across the screen. Banking While Black begins its viral journey, though none of them know. They're making history. I'm perfectly comfortable here, Amara responds, her voice carrying undertones of something Collins can't quite identify. Amusement? Anticipation? Well, that's just it, Collins continues, his confidence swelling. Comfort isn't really the issue. This is about proper procedures, risk assessment, corporate liability, as if her melanin content poses a quantifiable threat to their quarterly earnings. Amara shifts her purse slightly. For exactly 3 seconds, a corner of matte black plastic emerges from her wallet. American Express Centurion. Invitation only. Annual fee $7,500, 0 cents. Reserved for the top 0.04% of cardholders worldwide. Collins misses it entirely. He's too busy savoring his moment of institutional dominance. Collins rises to his full height now, using every inch to project authority. I'm afraid I'll need to involve my supervisor, and possibly security. We have strict protocols for individuals who can't provide adequate verification. Individuals, not customers, not people, individuals. Security guard Marcus Thompson appears within 30 seconds, but something's different about his approach. His eyes find Amara's briefly, and there's recognition there. Not of her face, but of the situation. He's witnessed this particular brand of institutional cruelty before. Ma'am, Thompson says carefully, positioning himself slightly between Amara and Collins. The bank is requesting your cooperation with standard verification procedures. His tone carries an undertone of apology that Collins completely misses. Thompson has children. He knows exactly what's happening here. The lobby has transformed into an amphitheater of injustice. 12 customers, all unwilling witnesses to a masterclass in systemic racism delivered in real time. Their phones capture every word, every sneer, every calculated humiliation. What they're recording will become the most expensive customer service interaction in banking history. You know what, Mr. Collins? Amara's voice cuts through the tension like silk wrapped around steel. You're absolutely right. This is about verification, about knowing exactly who you're dealing with. Collins practically glows with vindication. Finally! I'm glad we can resolve this professionally. Some people just need to understand how things work in the real world. The real world. The irony is so thick it could stop bullets. Amara's hand moves to her phone with deliberate precision. Her thumb scrolls through contacts until it finds the name that will reshape Collins' understanding of power structures forever. At the very top of her contact list, marked with a star for priority access, James Morrison, CEO, First National Bank. James Morrison, Janet Morrison. The family connection that's about to turn this from professional humiliation into personal devastation. Mr. Collins, Amara says, her voice carrying the preternatural calm that precedes hurricanes. I think it's time we clarified exactly who requires verification here. She presses call. The name illuminates her screen in bold letters. James Morrison, CEO. Janet Morrison's face drains of all color. Her fingers freeze above her keyboard. That name, that number. How does this woman have direct access to her uncle? The phone rings once, twice. Then a voice answers that will change everything. Hello, James? It's Amara Williams. The voice that answers crackles through the speaker, warm and immediate. Amara, how's the Williams Fund performing this quarter? The words detonate through the lobby like grenades. Collins' smirk dies on his lips. Janet Morrison's keyboard falls silent. The businessman behind Amara drops his phone. I'm standing in your First National branch right now, Amara says, her voice silk over steel. Downtown location, having a fascinating discussion about risk management. Risk management? For you? Morrison's voice sharpens. What the hell is happening down there? Collins' face cycles through confusion, recognition, and absolute terror. His mouth works soundlessly, like a fish drowning in corporate quicksand. Your branch manager, Derek, has been very educational about verification procedures, Amara continues, never breaking eye contact with Collins. Haven't you, Derek? The casual use of his first name hits Collins like a physical blow. How does she know his name? How does she have the CEO's personal number? How is James Morrison talking to her like they're old friends? Put Collins on, now! The CEO's voice could freeze fire. Collins reaches for the phone with trembling hands. Mr. Morrison? Sir, there's been a misunderstanding. Derek Collins, employee ID 47,291, hired March 2019, currently on probation for customer complaints. Morrison's voice is arctic. That you? The specificity is surgical. Collins nods frantically, forgetting Morrison can't see him. Sir, if I could just explain. Hand the phone back to Dr. Williams. Immediately. Dr. Williams. The title hangs in the air like a smoking gun. Amara accepts the phone with the practiced ease of someone accustomed to corporate deference. James, I think your staff might be confused about our banking relationship. Confused? Morrison's voice rises dangerously. Amara, Williams Capital represents 23% of our total corporate deposits. You're on our Platinum Advisory Board. You have quarterly lunches with our chairman. 23%. The number explodes through the lobby like a nuclear weapon. Collins staggers backward, his knees actually buckling. Janet Morrison's face drains of all color, leaving her looking like a marble statue. The crowd of witnesses has transformed from shocked bystanders to hungry spectators at the greatest corporate reversal in banking history. Well, Amara continues conversationally, Derek suggested I might be more comfortable at your community branch on MLK Boulevard. Apparently I don't meet premier banking standards. The silence through the speaker is deafening. When Morrison's voice returns, it carries the kind of rage that ends careers and destroys lives. Have you become serious with God? Oh, and your computer systems are apparently running very slowly today. At least according to Ms. Morrison here. Janet Morrison makes a sound like air escaping from a punctured tire. Janet Morrison? The CEO's voice sharpens to a razor point. My niece, Janet? The nepotism connection explodes into the open like an infected wound bursting. Janet's legs give out entirely. She grabs the counter for support, her career imploding in real time. District Manager Sarah Chen chooses this catastrophic moment to arrive, radiating corporate authority. She surveys the scene with the confidence of someone who believes she's in control. Complete miscalculation. What's the situation here? Chen demands. Amara looks up from her phone. Are you the district manager? Sarah Chen, district manager for Metropolitan Banking. Chen's voice carries practiced authority. And you are? Through the speaker, Morrison's voice cuts like a scythe. Ms. Chen, this is CEO James Morrison. You're speaking to Dr. Amara Williams, founder and CEO of Williams Capital Group. Your staff has just delivered a master class in institutional racism to our largest institutional client. Chen's corporate confidence evaporates like boiling water. Dr. Williams controls $2,300,000,000 0 cents in assets. Morrison continues relentlessly. She sits on our Platinum Advisory Board. She has direct access to our chairman. And your branch has spent 10 minutes treating her like a security threat. Security guard Marcus Thompson quietly steps backward, his instincts vindicated. This woman doesn't need protection from the bank. The bank needs protection from her. Chen's damage control training kicks in. Dr. Williams, I sincerely apologize for any misunderstanding. My lord, misunderstanding? Amara's voice develops a new edge, sharp enough to cut glass. Derek told me I need to understand how things work in the real world. Janet implied I don't qualify for premier services. You all seemed quite certain about who belongs here. The phones recording this massacre have multiplied exponentially. 12 witnesses have become 30, then 50, banking while black transnationally in real time. Chen scrambles desperately. Perhaps we could discuss this privately. Privately? Amara's laugh could shatter crystal. Like how Derek privately questioned my income, how Janet privately suggested the community branch. Morrison's voice crackles through again. I'm implementing immediate disciplinary action, full investigation, complete policy review. But Amara isn't finished. Not remotely. James, before you do anything hasty, we should examine whether this represents an isolated incident or systematic discrimination. The phrase systematic discrimination detonates like napalm. Chen's face goes gray. Collins looks genuinely nauseous. Janet Morrison starts crying actual tears. What kind of systematic issues? Morrison asks, though his tone suggests he knows the answer will ruin his week. I've been analyzing some fascinating statistical patterns in your customer service metrics, Amara says with clinical precision. Loan approval disparities, processing time variations, verification procedure inconsistencies. The data tells quite a story. The implication lands like a meteor strike. This isn't about today. This isn't about Collins or Janet or Chen. This is about provable, documented, legally actionable discrimination patterns. Collins finds his voice, but it emerges as a broken whisper. Dr. Williams, I had absolutely no idea. No idea about what, Derek? Amara's surgical use of his first name draws blood. My qualifications, or that actions have consequences? The question hangs unanswered, because honesty would mean professional suicide. Morrison's voice cuts through the devastation. I'm coming down there personally. Don't move, don't do anything. We're fixing this immediately. Amara ends the call and surveys the wreckage she's created with nothing more than a 10-digit phone number. Collins trembles like a leaf in a hurricane. Janet Morrison sobs quietly into her hands. Chen stares into the middle distance, calculating her remaining career prospects. The crowd watches in fascination as institutional power dynamics collapse in real time. But as Amara places her phone back on the marble counter, one truth becomes crystalline. This is only the beginning. The silence after Morrison's call stretches like a taut wire, ready to snap. Collins stands frozen, his world tilting on its axis. Janet Morrison's tears drip onto her keyboard. Chen stares into the void where her career used to be. Then Amara does something unexpected. She laughs. Not bitter, not angry. Pure, genuine amusement that somehow makes everything infinitely worse. You know what's funny, Derek? Her voice carries the dangerous calm of someone holding all the cards. Exactly 18 minutes ago, I was sitting in a boardroom 47 floors above us. Collins blinks in confusion. 18 minutes ago, she was... What? 47th floor, First National Headquarters, corner office with the view of the harbor. Amara's smile grows wider. Know whose office that is? The question hangs like a guillotine blade. That's James Morrison's office, your CEO. We were having our quarterly investment review. She pauses, savoring the moment. When I told him I wanted to conduct a little experiment. Experiment. The word detonates through Collins' consciousness like shrapnel. You see, James has been receiving some disturbing reports about customer service disparities in certain branches. Statistical anomalies, pattern inconsistencies. Amara's voice takes on the clinical tone of a scientist describing lab results. So we decided to test the hypothesis. Collins' mouth goes dry. Test what hypothesis? Whether systematic discrimination would occur when a qualified black woman walked into this branch asking for routine banking services. The revelation hits like a freight train. This wasn't random. This wasn't accidental. This was a calculated experiment. And Collins just failed it spectacularly. The entire interaction has been monitored, Amara continues conversationally. Audio surveillance from my phone, video feed from those security cameras you're so fond of, real-time observation from corporate security. She glances upward almost casually. Hi, Marcus. Security guard Thompson's face goes ashen. He knows exactly who she's talking to. Corporate security. They've been watching everything. But here's the really interesting part, Amara says, her voice developing that edge that makes smart people run. James and I made a small wager about how long it would take for discriminatory behavior to manifest. A wager. She bet money on being discriminated against. I said within 5 minutes. James thought your training was better than that. He gave you 10 minutes. Her smile could cut glass. You lasted exactly 3 minutes and 47 seconds before suggesting I belong at the community branch. Collins staggers backward like he's been shot. Dr. Williams, please. Please what? Please pretend this didn't happen? Please ignore the systematic racism you just demonstrated on camera. Her voice sharpens to a scalpel's edge. Please forget that you've provided irrefutable evidence of federal civil rights violations. Federal civil rights violations. The words hit Collins like artillery fire. Because here's what you need to understand. Amara continues relentlessly. This wasn't just customer service discrimination. This was a federal audit test. And you just failed it in the most spectacular way possible. She reaches into her purse again, but this time she pulls out something that makes Collins' blood freeze. A badge. Federal credentials. Department of Justice seal. Dr. Amara Williams. She reads from her identification. Special Consultant Civil Rights Division, Financial Crimes Task Force. The badge hits the marble counter with the finality of a judge's gavel. Collins' legs give out. He grabs the counter for support, his face cycling through shock, terror, and complete understanding of how thoroughly he's been destroyed. The Department of Justice has been investigating systematic discrimination in banking for 18 months. Amara explains with clinical detachment. We've documented patterns across 47 branches in 12 states. She pauses, letting the scope sink in. But we needed irrefutable evidence of discriminatory intent. Video proof of institutional bias. Witnesses to systematic exclusion. Her smile returns, predatory and satisfied. Congratulations, Derek. You just provided everything we needed. Janet Morrison's sobbing intensifies to actual wailing. Chen looks like she might vomit. Thompson quietly steps further away from the disaster zone. The beautiful thing about federal investigations, Amara continues, is the scope of prosecution. Individual charges for each act of discrimination. Institutional charges for systematic bias, corporate charges for policy violations. She counts on her fingers like a child reciting multiplication table. Civil rights violations, felony charges, conspiracy to discriminate, federal crime, violation of fair banking practices, institutional liability. Each charge lands like a physical blow. Financial penalties, criminal prosecution, federal oversight. Collins finally finds his voice, but it emerges as a broken whisper. How long have you been watching us? 18 months of surveillance, 12 months of documentation, 6 months of legal preparation. Amara's voice carries the satisfaction of a chess master announcing checkmate. Today was just the final piece of evidence. She pulls out her phone again, but this time she shows them the screen. Not a contact list, not a phone number, a live video feed. This entire interaction has been broadcast in real time to the Department of Justice Task Force, she explains casually. 14 federal attorneys, 6 civil rights investigators, and 1 very angry attorney general have been watching your performance. The camera on her phone has been recording everything, broadcasting everything, transmitting their destruction to federal prosecutors in real time. They're particularly interested in your suggestion about MLK Boulevard, Amara observes. That kind of coded racial redlining hasn't been documented this clearly since the 30s, 960s. Collins stares at the phone in horror. 14 federal attorneys, 6 investigators, all watching him destroy his life, one racist comment at a time. But here's my absolute favorite part, Amara says, her voice taking on an almost conversational tone. The statistical analysis we've been conducting. She shows them another screen, graphs, charts, data visualization that would make a mathematician weep. Your branch has the highest discrimination rates in the entire First National system. 73% longer processing times for minority customers. 41% lower loan approval rates for identical qualifications. 87% of verification requests target Black clients. Each statistic is a nail in their collective coffin. You're not just racist, Derek. You're statistically, provably, federally documented racist. Her voice develops an edge that could cut diamond. Your discrimination is so consistent it constitutes a mathematical pattern. She closes the phone with finality that sounds like a coffin lid slamming shut. So when you asked me about verification procedures, you weren't just questioning my qualifications. You were providing evidence in a federal case that will send you to prison and shut down this branch permanently. The lobby has become a mausoleum. 50 witnesses stand in absolute silence, watching institutional racism collapse under the weight of its own arrogance. Collins makes one final, desperate attempt. Dr. Williams, I was just following training. Training? Amara's laugh could shatter steel. You mean the discriminatory policies your corporate office distributed? The racial profiling guidelines disguised as risk assessment? The systematic exclusion protocols masked as customer service? She leans forward, her voice dropping to a whisper that carries more menace than screaming. We have copies of everything, Derek. Every memo, every training session, every policy document that institutionalized racism. Her smile returns, cold as winter moonlight. Your defense just became evidence of conspiracy. The truth settles over Collins like a burial shroud. He didn't just commit individual acts of discrimination. He followed institutional policies designed to discriminate, which makes it conspiracy, which makes it federal, which makes it over. The irony, Amara concludes with scientific detachment, is that treating me with basic human dignity would have saved your career, your freedom, and your institution. She stands, gathering her things with the precision of someone whose work here is finished. But racism made you stupid, Derek, and stupid made you criminal. She heads toward the door, then pauses. Oh, and Derek? The federal marshals should be here any minute. As if summoned by her words, black SUVs pull up outside the bank. Game over. The federal marshals enter like shadows given form. No Hollywood dramatics, no shouting, just quiet, terrifying efficiency that makes Collins' legs buckle. Beatifer, Special Agent Rebecca Martinez displays her badge with the casual authority of someone who's destroyed careers before breakfast. Derek Collins, you're under arrest for federal civil rights violations. The Miranda rights echo through marble halls like a death knell. Colin's hands shake as handcuffs click into place. Janet Morrison's wailing could wake the dead as she joins the federal parade of professional destruction. But as agents process their arrests, Amara's phone buzzes. 4 words that change everything. Emergency board meeting, now. The elevator to the 47th floor moves with agonizing slowness. 47 floors to ascend, from institutional racism to corporate reckoning. And then, the boardroom doors open to reveal First National's complete power structure assembled in crisis formation. CEO James Morrison sits rigid at a conference table worth more than most homes. 12 board members. 6 executives. 3 panic-stricken lawyers. They look like defendants awaiting sentence. Amara! Morrison's voice carries the hollow tone of a man watching his empire crumble. Thank you for... James! She cuts him off with surgical precision, taking the power seat directly opposite him. I assume you enjoyed the show? Every federal agent in the building watched your branch commit textbook civil rights violations. Morrison confirms, his corporate composure cracking. Live streamed to our legal department, compliance officers, and crisis management team. Board member Catherine Steinberg leans forward, desperation bleeding through her professional veneer. Dr. Williams, surely we can resolve this internally. Internally? Amara's laugh could shatter Diamond. Catherine, your employees just provided federal prosecutors with enough evidence to dismantle your entire institution. This isn't internal anymore. This is federal. Chief Legal Counsel David Kim slides a thick folder across polished mahogany. We've prepared a comprehensive settlement. Settlement? Amara's voice develops that dangerous edge. David, you seem confused about the nature of federal criminal prosecution. You don't settle civil rights violations. You serve prison sentences. The lawyers exchanged panicked glances. Corporate law school didn't prepare them for Department of Justice task forces. But then Morrison does something unexpected. He stands, walks to the window, and laughs. Not nervous corporate laughter. Genuine amusement that makes everyone else deeply uncomfortable. You know what's funny, Amara? He turns back to face the room. 6 months ago, I could have prevented all of this with a single phone call. The room freezes. What phone call? 6 months ago, the Department of Justice contacted me directly. Morrison continues, his voice carrying bitter resignation. Informal inquiry about potential discrimination patterns. Off-the-record conversation about voluntary compliance programs. Amar's eyes narrow slightly. This isn't in her federal briefing materials. They offered us a choice, Morrison explains to his horrified board. Voluntary self-audit with minimal federal oversight, or formal investigation with full prosecution authority. Board member Robert Chen's face goes ashen. James, what did you tell them? Morrison's smile could cut glass. I told them First National doesn't need federal babysitters. I told them our customer service was exemplary. I told them discrimination claims were frivolous litigation fishing expeditions. The confession hits the room like a nuclear bomb. He rejected federal cooperation. He dismissed discrimination concerns. He chose institutional arrogance over voluntary compliance. So when you orchestrated today's audit test, Morrison continues, his gaze locked on Amara, you weren't just documenting discrimination. You were documenting willful defiance of federal cooperation requests. The implication detonates through corporate consciousness like shrapnel. Willful defiance, obstruction of justice, conspiracy to continue criminal behavior after federal warning. End of English essay, posters act. This isn't just discrimination anymore. This is criminal enterprise. The beautiful irony, Morrison observes with the detached fascination of someone watching his own execution, is that voluntary compliance would have cost us maybe $10 million, 0 cents, in training and oversight. Chief Financial Officer Maria Santos calculates rapidly, her face reflecting growing horror. James, what's the cost of federal prosecution? Complete institutional dissolution, Morrison answers flatly. Criminal seizure of assets, personal liability for board members, prison sentences for executive staff. The numbers hit like artillery fire. $10 million in voluntary compliance versus complete corporate annihilation. But here's the really interesting part, Morrison continues, his voice taking on that dangerous calm that precedes corporate massacres. Dr. Williams didn't just document our discrimination today. He pulls out his own folder. Corporate documents, internal communications, email chains. She documented our systematic cover-up of federal cooperation requests, our deliberate dismissal of discrimination complaints, our conscious decision to continue criminal behavior after federal warning. Each revelation lands like a physical blow. They're not just guilty of discrimination. They're guilty of conspiracy, obstruction, and willful continuation of federal crimes. Show them the really damaging evidence, Morrison says, sliding his folder toward Amara. She opens it with clinical interest. Then her expression changes. For the first time today, she looks genuinely surprised. Internal emails, executive communications, board meeting minutes documenting their conscious decision to ignore federal warnings and continue discriminatory practices. You kept records, she observes with something approaching admiration. You documented your own criminal conspiracy. Corporate compliance, Morrison explains with bitter irony. We meticulously documented our decision to commit federal crimes. The board members stare at their own written evidence of criminal enterprise, email chains proving they knew about discrimination, meeting minutes showing they chose to continue it, financial records demonstrating institutional conspiracy. They built their own federal case against themselves. So here's our situation, Morrison continues with the calm of someone who's accepted complete defeat. Federal prosecutors now have evidence of systematic discrimination, willful defiance of cooperation requests, and documented criminal conspiracy. He returns to his seat, corporate authority completely evaporated. We're not negotiating settlement terms, Amara. We're negotiating whether any of us avoid prison sentences. The truth settles over the room like poison gas. They're not corporate executives anymore. They're criminal defendants. Amara closes the folder with finality that sounds like a coffin lid slamming shut. Here's what's going to happen. Her voice carries the quiet authority of someone holding absolute power over institutional life and death. Complete dissolution of current management structure, federal receivership of all operations, criminal prosecution of executive staff who participated in documented conspiracy. Each word lands like a judicial sentence. Establishment of a $200 million 0 cents victim compensation fund. Complete restructuring under federal oversight. New management selected by Department of Justice compliance officers. $200 million. The board members calculate their personal financial destruction in real time. But here's your choice. Amara continues with surgical precision. Voluntary cooperation with federal prosecution in exchange for reduced sentences, or complete resistance leading to maximum criminal penalties. She stands, gathering materials with the efficiency of someone whose work here is nearly finished. You have until tomorrow morning to decide whether you're witnesses or co-conspirators. Morrison makes one final attempt at corporate dignity. and Williams Capital's business relationship? Amara pauses at the door, her voice carrying the cold satisfaction of absolute victory. That depends on whether your successors understand that systematic racism isn't just morally bankrupt. She opens the door, then delivers the final blow. It's literally bankrupt. The door closes behind her with judicial finality. In the boardroom, 12 of the most powerful people in banking sit in absolute silence, contemplating federal prison sentences they built with their own documented arrogance. Corporate racism just received its federal death sentence, and they wrote the execution order themselves. 6 months later, Amara walks through the same marble lobby where her humiliation became revolution. The crystal chandeliers gleam with identical brilliance. The bulletproofed glass still separates worlds. But the soul of this place has been reborn. Behind the premier banking counter stands Marcus Thompson, the same security guard who positioned himself protectively between her and Collins now wears a branch manager's suit and the quiet dignity of someone who's seen justice delivered. "Dr. Williams," he greets her with genuine warmth. "Welcome back." The words carry weight beyond courtesy. 6 months ago, she wasn't welcome here. Today, she's the catalyst who transformed everything. Derek Collins is serving 18 months in federal prison. His cell doesn't have marble columns or crystal chandeliers. Janet Morrison got 12 months plus community service, cleaning the same floors her racism once polluted. Sarah Chen negotiated probation in exchange for testifying against her corporate masters. But the real devastation happened 47 floors above. James Morrison, federal conviction, $2,300,000, 0 cents in fines, lifetime ban from banking. His corner office now belongs to someone who understands that dignity isn't a demographic luxury. 6 board members, criminal convictions, asset forfeiture, personal liability totaling $47 million, 0 cents. Their country club memberships couldn't purchase federal pardons. The institutional surgery was precise and merciless. "I'd like to make a deposit," Amara tells Thompson. The same words that triggered corporate earthquakes 6 months ago. "Of course. Business or personal?" 3 minutes, 15 seconds. Professional, efficient, human. Everything Collins could have provided if racism hadn't made him stupid. But the real transformation lives in details invisible to casual observers. Miguel Rodriguez, a construction contractor, completed his business loan application moments before Amara arrived. No coded language about urban demographics, no suggestions about community banking alternatives, no verification theater designed to humiliate. His loan was approved in 48 hours, same terms, same rates, same respect offered to every customer regardless of surname or accent. The artificial intelligence monitoring system that now governs every interaction flagged zero bias indicators. Mathematical proof that dignity has become standard procedure. The $200 million 0 cents victim compensation fund has touched lives across the community. Maria Santos received $47,000, 0 cents, for the mortgage denial that forced her family into substandard housing. David Kim's restaurant got $23,000, 0 cents compensation, for the business loan rejection that nearly destroyed his American dream. But money alone couldn't heal the deeper wounds. Amara watches Ashley Chen, the new senior teller, process transactions with methodical fairness. Chen completed 160 hours of federal bias training. Not corporate seminars about legal compliance, but intensive education about unconscious prejudice and systematic harm. The training worked because ignorance became unemployable. Every employee now understands that discrimination isn't just morally wrong or legally dangerous, it's professionally suicidal. Bias indicators trigger immediate federal investigation. Disparate treatment means instant termination. Systematic racism equals criminal liability. Fear can be an excellent teacher when properly applied. The community response has been transformative. Word travels fast in neighborhoods that remember institutional racism. Within 3 months, minority business deposits increased 340%. Personal accounts from previously excluded customers rose 280%. Dignity generated more profit than decades of systematic exclusion. But the most profound change isn't captured in quarterly reports. Thompson shows Amara the community investment fund's latest projects. Corner grocery store financing for the Hernandez family. Tech startup capital for 3 recent college graduates. Restaurant expansion loans for businesses previously deemed high risk based purely on zip code demographics. Economic empowerment flowing directly from civil rights enforcement. You know what's interesting? Thompson observes as they review the numbers. Treating people with respect turned out to be the most profitable business model we've ever implemented. The irony is mathematically beautiful. Eliminating racism increased annual profits by $89 million, 0 cents. Basic human dignity generated more revenue than systematic discrimination. As Amara prepares to leave, she notices a young black woman approaching the premier banking counter with visible nervousness. The same tentative approach Amara once made, braced for institutional humiliation. But Ashley Chen's greeting is immediate and warm. Good afternoon. How can I help you today? The young woman relaxes visibly. No coded language, no demographic assumptions, no suggestion that she belongs elsewhere. Her transaction takes 4 minutes, 12 seconds, identical to every other customer's experience, regardless of melanin content or economic assumptions. The federal oversight will continue for 7 years, long enough to embed new cultural DNA, long enough to train employees who view discrimination as career suicide, long enough to prove that institutional racism can be surgically removed when consequences are swift and inescapable. 23 other financial institutions now face similar Department of Justice investigations. 8 banks implemented voluntary compliance programs rather than endure federal prosecution. The ripple effect of one 10-minute humiliation has reshaped an entire industry. But the victory that matters most is personal. Walking past the marble columns where Collins once orchestrated her degradation, Amara reflects on the deeper transformation. This isn't just about banking policy or federal oversight. This is about dignity, becoming non-negotiable. Her phone buzzes with a text from Thompson. Thank you for refusing to accept unacceptable. 6 words that capture everything. She could have filed a complaint and moved on. She could have taken her business elsewhere and forgotten the incident. She could have accepted that some battles aren't worth fighting. Instead, she chose to prove that systematic racism becomes prosecutable when confronted by systematic consequences. The young woman exits the bank with a smile, her transaction completed with efficiency and respect. She'll tell her family, her friends, her community that First National treats customers like human beings regardless of demographic. Word will spread, trust will rebuild, economic empowerment will flow to communities previously excluded from financial prosperity, all because one woman refused to accept that dignity was negotiable. Justice, as it turns out, is the most profitable investment of all. 2 years later, Amara stands in the exact same spot where Collins once humiliated her. Same marble counter, same bulletproof glass. But today, she's not here for banking. Today, she's here for closure. Marcus Thompson greets her with the warm smile of someone whose life was forever changed by witnessing justice delivered. Dr. Williams, welcome home. Home. The word carries weight she never expected. This place that once symbolized institutional racism has become a monument to transformation. I brought something for you, Amara says, placing a bronze plaque on the counter. Thompson reads aloud, "On this spot, February 15th, 2022, systematic racism met systematic consequences. Dedicated to everyone who refuses to accept that dignity is negotiable." His eyes water slightly. This security guard turned branch manager understands the power of symbols, the importance of remembering what changed and why. But the real memorial isn't bronze, it's breathing. Ashley Chen approaches from her teller station, now 6 months pregnant with her first child. "Dr. Williams, I wanted to thank you. My daughter will grow up in a world where what happened to you can't happen to her." The words hit deeper than any Senate testimony or corporate settlement. This isn't about policy reform or federal oversight. This is about a child who will inherit dignity as her birthright, not her battle. Behind Ashley, a line of customers reflects the community transformation. Miguel Rodriguez, the contractor whose business loan was approved without coded discrimination. Mrs. Patterson, the elderly black woman whose mortgage application received the same respect as any other customer. David Kim, whose restaurant expansion loan funded his American dream. Lives changed, futures secured, economic dignity delivered. Collins's empty office serves as a museum of institutional arrogance. His nameplate sits in a display case, accompanied by federal court documents proving that racism has consequences. Visitors often pause here, studying the evidence that systematic discrimination carries personal liability. Educational tourism from the ruins of racial hatred. Janet Morrison volunteers at the community center down the street, teaching financial literacy to families previously excluded from traditional banking. Her nephew, a recent college graduate, got his first business loan from the same branch where she once practiced discrimination. Redemption through service. Transformation through consequence. The numbers tell their own story. 400% increase in minority business lending nationwide. 350% rise in black home ownership approvals. $2.3 billion, 0 cents in previously denied capital, now flowing to communities that earned it. But statistics pale beside human moments. A young black woman approaches the premier banking counter with confident strides, no hesitation in her movement. She belongs here because dignity is universal, not demographic. Her transaction takes 4 minutes, identical to every other customer's experience. No verification theater, no coded language, no suggestion that she'd be more comfortable elsewhere. Standard humanity delivered systematically. Amara watches this routine interaction with quiet satisfaction. The revolution succeeded not because it was dramatic, but because it made discrimination professionally impossible and personally expensive. Fear, properly applied, becomes an excellent teacher. Thompson walks her to the exit, past the marble columns that once witnessed her humiliation and now stand guard over transformed justice. "You know what I learned," he says quietly. "Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is refuse to accept the unacceptable." Amara pauses at the threshold, looking back at the institution she helped reshape through sheer refusal to be diminished. "The beautiful thing about dignity," she responds, "is that it's contagious. Once one person demands it, everyone else remembers they deserve it too." She steps into afternoon sunlight, leaving behind a monument to systematic change and systematic justice. Your turn. Have you ever been somewhere you belonged but were treated like you were trespassing? Drop your story in the comments. Sometimes sharing breaks the silence that enables injustice. If this story made you feel something, share it. Real change happens when individual courage meets collective action. Subscribe for more stories proving that one person's refusal to accept the unacceptable can reshape entire systems. Because dignity isn't negotiable, and justice properly delivered is contagious.